It was Christmas Eve, and I was pulling a double shift up in the skies. The kind that leaves you hollowed out by the time the plane touches down. My name's Emily. And as a flight medic, holidays often blur into just another rotation of emergencies, heart attacks at 30,000 feet. Passengers clutching their chests while the world below twinkles like it's mocking the chaos above. But that night, as the clock ticked past 11:45 p.m., and I finally dragged myself through our front door, exhaustion clinging to me like fog, I wasn't prepared for the real emergency waiting in our living room. The house was dark, save for the faint glow of the string lights we'd strung up hastily the week before Sophie's idea. My 6-year-old daughter, who insisted on making our place feel festive even if we were both working through the season. Her boots were kicked off haphazardly by the entryway mat, the ones with the scuffed toes from her new driving adventures. My heart stuttered for a split second. Boots out of place like that usually meant trouble. A spill of blood or a twisted ankle from some teenage mishap. But then I saw her coat draped over the arm of the couch like a defeated flag. Her overnight bag still zipped tight beside it, untouched. And there she was, Sophie, curled into that rigid ball on the cushions. The kind of sleep that isn't restful. Just a temporary surrender to whatever had chased her home. I froze in the doorway, my flight bag slipping from my shoulder to the floor with a soft thud that didn't wake her. She was supposed to be at my parents' place. The big family tradition we'd upheld for years, the one with the crackling fire. The too many cousins, chaos. And Grandma Evelyn's famous roast that always stretched to feed an army. Sophie had begged to drive herself this year. Her learner's permit freshly upgraded to a full license. Her eyes lighting up at the independence. Mom. Please. I left early to beat the traffic. I'll text when I get there. And she had her message had pinged my phone mid-flight made it love you. See you tomorrow. Everything had seemed perfect. David, my husband, was still finishing his own late shift at the hospital. So the plan made sense. Until now. Sophie, I whispered, my voice barely cutting the silence as I stepped closer. The scent of cold air and pine from her coat mixing with the stale takeout we'd left in the fridge. Her eyes snapped open. Alert, in that way only kids have when they're pretending to sleep through pain. She uncurled slowly, propping herself up on one elbow. In her dark hair, a tangled mess over the sweater she'd picked out weeks ago, the soft green one Grandma Evelyn had once complimented during a rare family video call. Hey, Mom, she said, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. You're home early. Why are you here? I sat on the edge of the coffee table, close enough to see the faint smudges under her eyes. Like she'd been fighting tears before giving in. She shrugged. That teenage armor she was perfecting. Picking at a loose thread on the blanket. They said there wasn't room. Her voice was steady at first, but it cracked on the last word, like thin ice underfoot. She cleared her throat. Tried again. At the table. He blinked. The words not computing through the jet lag haze in my brain. Room. What do you mean? Room. There are always extra chairs. Grandpa Robert drags them out from the garage every year. Another shrug. Smaller this time. Her gaze dropping to her lap. They weren't expecting me. I guess. Said there were too many people already. And Grandma looked all stressed. Like pulling up another spot would ruin everything. She paused, fiddling with the zipper on her bag. The sound sharp in the quiet room. I got there right on time. Mom. Early. Even. Knocked. And she opened the door. But her face just went blank. Like I'd crashed the wrong party. My stomach twisted. A slow uncoiling of something cold and sharp. Evelyn had always been the orchestrator of these gatherings. her lists and timelines as precise as a wedding planner's. But Sophie, our Sophie, who baked those lopsided gingerbread cookies last week just to bring them along, did she say that outright? That there wasn't space? Sophie nodded. Her Fingerstilling. Yeah. And then she mentioned there wasn't a bed left either. Said they didn't want me driving back so late in the dark. But they didn't know where to put me. So I just left. She said it casually. Like it was no big deal. But her shoulders hunched forward. Betraying her. Wait, did anyone offer to drive you or at least walk you out? I leaned in. My mind racing through the logistics. Our house was a good 45 minutes away on those winding back roads. Pitch black after sunset. Nope. She met my eyes then. And there it was, the flicker of hurt she'd been burying. Not even Uncle Robert. The table was already full when I peeked in. Mia, Rebecca's girl, was in my spot. The one by the window, where Grandpa always tells those dumb jokes. Everyone was laughing. Passing plates. No one even turned. Mia, of course. Rebecca's golden child. The niece who could do no wrong. Always front and center with her stories and smiles. I'd heard the comparisons before. Whispered at family barbecues, Mia's got that spark. Just like her mom. Sophie. Quiet and thoughtful. Often faded into the background. But this was deliberate. Did they at least let you eat something before you left? My voice came out sharper than I intended. Laced with the anger starting to bubble under my fatigue. She glanced toward the kitchen. A ghost of a laugh escaping. I grabbed toast on the way out. Made it myself in their kitchen while they pretended not to notice. She pointed vaguely. And I followed her gaze to the side table, a single plate balanced there. A slice of bread gone cold and curled at the edges. A half-eaten banana, beside it, like a sad garnish. That was her Christmas Eve dinner. In our empty house. The sight hit me like a downdraft. Stealing my breath. Not rage. Not yet. Just that brittle, crystalline tension building in my chest. The prelude to a fracture I could feel coming. Sophie must have seen it on my face because she rushed on. Her words tumbling faster now. I wasn't even hungry. Mom, really. It's fine. They just. It made it feel like I'd shown up uninvited. Like my name wasn't on the list they all knew about. Her eyes welled up then. Hot and sudden. And she swiped at them furiously. Tilting her head back to stare at the ceiling, as if she could blink it all away. She bit her lip. I hard enough that I winced in sympathy. Chewing through the vulnerability, like it was something she could swallow down. I packed that sweater you said Grandma liked. She whispered. Voice breaking. And the cookies, the ones with the cinnamon she always raves about. I thought. I don't know. That'd be different this time. I slid onto the couch beside her. Wrapping my arm around her shoulders without a word. She melted into me instantly. Her body sagging as if she'd been holding it rigid out of sheer willpower. A dam against the disappointment. We sat like that for what felt like hours. The only sounds, the distant hum of the fridge, and her quiet sniffles fading into hiccups. Eventually, she pulled back, wiping her face on her sleeve. Unapologetic. Raf, I know they don't get you. Mom. The whole doctor thing. The way you're always saving people. But I figured. I'm just the grandkid. The easy one to like. You are the easy one. I murmured, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. And they didn't even say it mean. Did they? Just. A matter of fact. Like you were an extra guest, crashing the head count. She nodded. Fresh tears spilling over. Exactly. Like I was some fold-up chair they forgot to plan for. Practical problem. Not personal. But it was personal. Deeply. Viciously so. And as she cried soft and steady, like rain against a window, I couldn't shut. I felt that coil in my chest tighten. Threads of old wounds unraveling alongside this new one. I didn't sleep much after she finally drifted off. Tucked under the Afghan we'd bought on a whim during a family road trip years ago. Instead, I wandered to the kitchen, flipping on the under-cabinet light to stare at her bag. Still zipped, like a sealed promise. She'd folded everything so neatly inside the sweater. The tin of cookies with their hand-scribbled labels. A wrapped gift for her little cousins, that now sat forlorn on the counter. I cracked open the fridge bare shelves. A carton of milk on its last legs. Leftovers from a microwave meal David and I had scarfed down separately. We'd never needed a contingency plan for Christmas. Why would we? Family was family. Trust was the foundation we'd built our lives on. Brick by invisible brick. But now, that trust lay cracked open, exposing the rot beneath. It wasn't the cold toast or the empty seat that gnawed at me. It was the image of Sophie navigating those dark roads alone. Headlights cutting through the night. Her hands white-knuckled on the wheel, as the radio played some cheerful holiday tune. And worse, the moment Evelyn had looked my brave, eager girl in the eyes wide with that mix of nerves and excitement, and delivered the verdict. 28 people crammed into that warm set, laughing house. And not one spot for her. They hadn't meant no space. They'd meant not you. By the time David slipped through the door at dawn, his scrubs rumpled and his face etched with the quiet weariness of an ER surgeon. Sophie was still out cold on the couch. I met him in the hallway, pulling him into the kitchen before he could wake her. David. I started, my voice low and edged with something feral I didn't recognize. Something happened last night. He listened as I spilled it all, the text that lied. The boots by the door. The toast on the plate. His face hardened with each detail. The color draining, until he looked as spent as I felt. He stood there for a long beat, gripping the edge of the counter. Then, finally met my gaze. So, what do we do now? I didn't have an answer. Not in words. But deep down, in that shadowed place, where instincts override exhaustion, I already knew. There's grace. And there's a line, the one you draw when someone turns away, a 16-year-old girl who just wanted to belong. And they'd crossed it. Bold as brass. I didn't yell. Didn't storm the phone lines in a frenzy of accusations. No. I chose quiete. Sharper. 2 weeks later, my parents would find an envelope on their doorstep. Crisp and official. And the real storm would break. But that Christmas morning, as Sophie stirred and padded into the kitchen with sleepy eyes, asking if we could make pancakes instead, I forced a smile and pulled out the mix. Anything you want. Quito, I said, flipping on the griddle. Inside, though, the plan was forming cold. Deliberate. Unstoppable. What happens when the giver finally learns to take back? They were about to find out. That Christmas morning dawned gray and unyielding. The kind of light that filters through clouds, like it's too tired to try. Sophie and I salvaged what we could from the wreckage, pancakes stacked high with store-bought syrup. David's bleary-eyed arrival, turning our kitchen into a makeshift command center. He hugged her tight. No words needed. Just the solid weight of someone who got it. We didn't dissect the hurt over breakfast. Instead, we let the clatter of plates and the sizzle of bacon fill the gaps. A fragile normalcy pieced together from what we had left. But as the day wore on, with Sophie unwrapping the gifts she'd stashed under our scraggly tree books on astronomy she'd hinted at for months. A new sketchpad for her quiet drawings. I couldn't shake the undercurrent. This wasn't just a scheduling snafu. It was a symptom. A flare-up of resentments I'd buried so deep they'd fossilized into something unyielding. Later that afternoon, while Sophie napped off the emotional hangover and David caught up on sleep, I retreated to my home office, a converted closet really, crammed with medical journals and the hum of a secondhand laptop. I pulled up old photos on my phone, the ones from family albums digitized years ago, me at 6. Gap-toothed and solemn, holding a butterfly net like it was a lifeline, Sophie at 5. Beaming beside me at a backyard barbecue, her tiny hand in mine. Scrolling further back, the images sharpened into focus holidays much like this one, but with fuller tables and fewer shadows. Except for me. I don't recall the exact moment. They first branded me the weird one. But it must have been early, before I even grasped what the label implied. Probably around the time I started asking questions that made adults squirm. I was 6 when it crystallized. That summer day in the backyard, where the grass grew wild and the air hummed with cicadas, I'd found a sparrow, stiff and still, under the old oak. Its feathers matted like it had given up mid-flight. Not gruesome. Just intriguing. I carried it inside, cupped in my palms, and asked Dad Robert, with his calloused hands from factory shifts, if we could take it apart. Not for kicks, but to see the magic inside the tiny heart that once beat against the sky. The bones hollowed for flight. What's it made of? Dad, how does it know to go up? He stared. Fork halfway to his mouth. Then burst out laughing too loud. Too sharp. Mom Evelyn slammed her hand on the table, her voice pitching high. Lord. Emily. What on earth is wrong with you? That's not a toy, it's dead. My sister Rebecca, 8, and already queen of the dramatics, shrieked like I'd unearthed a horror movie prop. She's gonna cut it open. Emily's making a monster bird. The grounding came swift a week in my room, staring at the wallpaper patterns until they blurred. Lesson 1: curiosity was a liability, not a gift. From there, it snowballed. A quiet avalanche that buried me layer by layer. I devoured library books on the human body, diagrams of lungs unfolding like parachutes, veins mapping, rivers on a skin. Christmas lists begged for a microscope, the kind with slides to peer into worlds invisible. Dinner conversations veered from small talk to my endless wise mom. Why does blood rush when you run? Is it like a dam breaking? Evelyn would sigh, heavy and theatrical, while Rebecca rolled her eyes to the ceiling. In our house, questions weren't sparks, they were spotlights, illuminating how I didn't quite fit. No one else raised their hand in class. High school diplomas were afterthoughts. Community college, a distant dream for most. I studied through the blare of TV reruns, flashcards hidden under couch cushions during commercials. By 12, Dad's jokes had teeth too sharp for your own good. Kid, you sure you're mine? He'd chuckle. But his eyes lingered, probing. One night, walls thin as promises, I overheard him in the kitchen, voice low and laced with doubt. Evelyn, you ever? You know, step out, she doesn't look like us. Or act it. The silence that followed stretched eternal. I lay in bed, heart hammering. 12-year-old logic, spinning worst-case webs. Cheated on, replaced. I never confronted it, still haven't. Some fractures heal crooked. High school sharpened the edges. Rebecca blossomed into the family's son, boisterous, effortlessly charming, scraping by with C's but spinning every setback into gold. A failed test, life's plot twist, she'd quip, and the room would roar. She mastered the art of performative care, draping an arm around me at gatherings. Poor Emily, always buried in books. Let me translate, she means well. Behind closed doors, it was freakazoid, whispered to friends at sleepovers. upgraded to Professor Know-It-All when I aced the science fair. College was my escape hatch. A full scholarship to pre-med. The kind that pays your way through sheer grit. Mom's reaction, a tight-lipped stare over coffee. Who'll want a girl like that? Emily, men don't chase brains, they chase balance. I shot back. Half joking. Maybe I'll marry the lab. No laugh. No pride. Just a check for gas money. Nothing more. They skipped graduation. Rebecca sent a card with a cartoon stethoscope and a note. Don't trip over your ego. Sis. Med school was a gauntlet. I ran alone waitressing doubles between lectures. Feet, throbbing, in ill-fitting shoes. Nights blurring into caffeine-fueled hazes. Living the dream. They'd say on rare calls. As if I weren't piecing together ramen budgets while they marveled at my fancy white coat. Visits 0. But success has a funny pull. Once I landed that first attending gig ER rotations stabilizing the brink of broken, I met David during a brutal overnight. Shared delirium over vending machine coffee. Trading war stories of codes and crashes. Romantic if bonding over IV lines counts. We built from there a starter apartment smelling of takeout. Then a house when the paycheck steadied. That's when the asks began. Tentative at first. Then title. M. The powers flickering. Could you spot the bill? Dad's voice. Gruff, but laced with expectation. Then Rebecca cosign, for my lease, just till things settle. Uncle Tom's back pain chat with a colleague. I did it all. No ledger kept. Just a quiet ledger in my heart. Retirement loomed for them early. Unplanned. A void where savings should be. Rent hikes. Job losses. The usual litany. So I stepped up a modest bungalow. 2 beds and a yard. Keys pressed into Evelyn's hand. It's yours. I'll cover the mortgage. My name on the deed. But theirs in spirit rent-free. Utilities padded when months ran lean. My insurance bridging their gaps. Emergencies handled. Dental cleanings billed to me. I never tallied the cost. Not in dollars, hundreds of thousands over 7 years, but in the unspoken, the shifts I picked up. The vacations skipped. The way David's hand squeezed mine after every transfer. Until the line in the sand. 3 months back. Rebecca's call lit up my phone mid-charting. Mia's in that elite STEM camp top tier. Life changer. Mia. Her 4-year-old prodigy. All accolades and ambition. She's got your smarts. M. The brainy streak. A compliment or a hook. Tuition's $1. Lambe. But for you pocket change. I paused. Ben hovering. Sophie could have had that summer dives into code or cosmos, but she'd never asked. Too considerate to burden. Practical to a fault. My girl. Rebecca. I said. Measured. I'm maxed parents' house. Their meds. The endless fixes. Try aid. Or installments. Her laugh turned brittle. A switch flipped. Wow. Hoarding it all. Huh. Mia's family. You're just sour 'cause she's outpacing Sophie. The venom landed. Old and familiar. A week later. Eavesdropping on Evelyn at a grocery run, Emily's always dimmed us strutting with her degrees. Making Rebecca look lacy. By existing. By succeeding where they stalled. I hung up without retort. No defense. No player. Just no. Etched in resolve. That seed. Planted 3 weeks pre-Christmas. Germinated in silence. Sophie buzzed with prep overnight bag zipped with care. Presents wrapped in comic book paper for the cousins. Grown-up vibes. Mom. Driving solo. Her text arrived as promised. Here chaos already. Miss you. Fine. Until it wasn't. Hours later. Our door clicked open to her ghost-pale face, that wobbly smile masking the chasm. Grandma said, "No room. Not at the table. Not anywhere." 28 souls packed in neighbors. Long-lost kin, but her surplus. I held her as the story spilled the surprised stares. The full plates passed over her head. The polite exile into the night. She dozed in that sweater. Cinnamon cookies abandoned in her bag. Alone in the kitchen. Replaying the ledger just this once that became eternity. I saw it clear, not space they'd lacked, but grace. They'd weaponized my daughter. A proxy for the grudge they'd nursed since I dared to rise. David found me there at midnight. Coffee cold in my grip. His voice pulled me back. I met his eyes. Steel in mine. "It's over. All of it. No more bridges. Just the burn. 2 weeks hence. That envelope would land eviction notice. 7 years' worth of generosity revoked in ink. But as sleep finally claimed me, tangled in sheets that smelled of Sophie's shampoo, one question lingered. Sharp as a scalpel. How deep does family resentment run before it demands its due? They'd shown me. Now I'd reciprocate. The days blurred into a tense limbo after Christmas. Each one a taut wire stretched between what was and what I'd make it. Sophie threw herself into distractions, binge-watching those sci-fi marathons she loved. Sketching constellations in her notebook with a ferocity that bordered on therapy. David and I tiptoed around the topic. Our conversations clipped over hurried dinners, past the salt masking. "How's the draft looking?" I'd started it that very night. Alone in the office, with a legal template pulled from a colleague's shared drive eviction notice. Boilerplate, but ironclad. The house was mine. After all, title clean. Mortgage, in my name. A fortress of fine print, I'd ignored for years out of sentiment. But sentiment had evicted my daughter first. Now, it was payback's turn. By New Year's, the ink was dry. The envelope sealed with a finality that hummed in my veins. We didn't rush it. 2 weeks gave me time to steel myself. To rehearse responses in the rearview while running errands. Sophie caught on. "Of course, kids always do." "Mom," she said one evening, curled on the couch with a mug of cocoa. "You don't have to. For me." Her eyes searched mine. That old worry flickering, the one that said she blamed herself for the rift. "I knæet beside her." Cupping her face. "This isn't on you, Soph. It's on them for seeing you as optional when you're everything." She nodded. But the hug lingered. Fierce and unspoken. "Thank you for fighting." The morning we chose was unremarkable, post-holiday haze still clinging. Streets slick with melting slush. The world nursing its collective hangover. David drove. His knuckles pale on the wheel. In the envelope, a passenger between us like a loaded charge. We didn't talk much. Words felt superfluous against the low rumble of the engine and the weight of what waited. His hand found my knee midway. A steady anchor, not reassurance. Exactly. But solidarity. Solid. Present. That was his gift, no grand gestures. Just the quiet ballast that kept me from tipping. "You sure?" he murmured as we crested the hill toward their street. The bungalow, coming into view, my bungalow. With its faded blue shutters, and the bird feeder I'd hung years ago. Now, dangling crooked. "As sure as a code blue," I replied. Half smile, masking the knot in my gut. The driveway told the tale, 2 extra cars wedged in. One, Rebecca's flashy SUV. The other some cousin's beater. Relics of the feast that had no room for Sophie. Laughter spilled from an open window. Muffled but merry leftovers and tall tales. The family machine, churning on without a hitch. I gripped the envelope tighter. The paper crinkling like dry leaves. Sleep had been a casualty these past nights, flashbacks to Sophie's toast. Evelyn's imagined smirk. The ledger of just this once replaying on loop. It fueled me now. A cold burn propelling my feet up the walk. I rang the bell once. Polite. Nothing. Twice. Insistent. A knock followed. Knuckles rapping sharp against the wood. Still. Silence. Broken only by the distant clink of dishes inside. David's voice came soft from behind M. Let's just leave it. Slide it under, no need for the show. He was right. Practically, emotion would only muddy the legal waters, but part of me, the buried kid who'd learned to dissect silences, craved the witness. I nodded anyway. Turning back toward the car. Tucking the envelope against the doorframe with care. Wedged, so the wind couldn't steal it. My fingers brushed the knob. Cool and unyielding. A threshold I'd crossed 1,000 times as daughter. Provider? Fixer. Not anymore. I was sliding into the driver's seat, David already buckled. Engine, humming low when the screen door creaked open behind us. A shuffle. Then Evelyn's voice. Tentative, hello, who's she? Emerged barefoot. Swaddled in that threadbare robe. The one patterned with faded poinsettias she'd snagged on clearance last Black Friday. Her hair was a nest of gray curls. Face puffy from holiday indulgences or sleep. Either way, she looked smaller than I remembered. Diminished. She bent stiffly. Retrieving the envelope with a frown. The paper, catching on the welcome mat. What's this? She muttered. More to herself. Tearing it open with arthritic fingers. We didn't bolt. David's foot hovered on the brake. My hand frozen on the door handle as she scanned the first line. Notice to vacate premises. Her lips moved silently. Eyes widening with each paragraph. 7 years tenancy. Non-payment history mine. Proxy. 60 days to comply. The color drained from her face in stages, blank shock, to ashen pallor, to a mottled red that climbed her neck. Then the scream ripped out. Raw and jagged. Shattering the morning, quiet, like glass under heel. Robert. Get out here now. Her voice cracked on the edges. A wire frayed to snapping. The envelope fluttered from her grip. Pages scattering across the stoop. Robert lumbered into view seconds later. Shirt tails untucked over yesterday's slacks. His perpetual squint deepening into confusion. Ev, what in tarnation? He snatched up the papers. Scanning faster than I'd expected. His bushy brows knitting into a single thundercloud. Eviction. From our house, Emily. What the hell is this? His bellow carried down the drive. Drawing Rebecca to the doorway, still in rumpled pajamas. A steaming mug clutched like a shield. Her eyes bleary, but sharpening quick. Mom. What's the yelling? Oh, her. She spotted us then. Pointing with accusatory flair. As if we'd materialized from thin air, to poison the well. You, ungrateful after all, We didn't wait for the crescendo. David gunned the engine gently. Tires crunching gravel as we pulled away. Evelyn's parting shot, you heartless witch, trailing like exhaust. It stung. Reflexive. But hollow. I'd heard variants my whole life. Tuned to static. By the time we merged onto the main road, my phone was alive, buzz after buzz. A hornet's nest stirred. First call Evelyn. Straight to shriek. How dare you, on New Year's after everything you've lost it. Girl clean lost it. No preamble. No, how's Sophie just venom? Dad's rumble underscoring from the background, if you go through with this. You're dead to us. No daughter of mine would I yanked the phone from my ear. Thumb hovering over, end call. But let it linger a beat. They didn't probe the why. No apology for the empty chair. The dark drive home. Just outrage. Pure and entitled. The barrage escalated. Rebecca's texts pinged in clusters. "This'll tank your rep. M. Think of the family. Your career." Patients hear this crap, as if scalpel skills hinged on holiday seating charts. By lunch, the tally climbed 32 missed calls, 14 messages, voicemails thick with sobs and slurs. One cousin ventured neutral. "Not my circus. But extreme much blood's thicker." I archived it all. A digital autopsy of denial. Extreme, perhaps. But turning away a girl with cookies in hand, that was cruelty dressed as convenience. The knock came next morning. Pre-coffee fog still clouding the windows. "Peephole," confirmed Evelyn. "Robe askew." The crumpled notice clutched like a talisman. Edges frayed from her grip. Damp, too. As if clutched through a restless night. I cracked the door. Chain engaged. Cool air slipping in with her glare. "Emily Marie. Are you really doing this?" Hislow. Venomous. Eyes darting past. "Me for weakness. After we raised you, gave you everything." I unlatched the chain. Stepping onto the porch, neutral ground. "My terms." "You mean the house I bought, the mortgage I've paid 7 years running, the co-pays for your BP meds when Medicare ghosted?" She flinched. Microsecond betrayal. Then rallied. "Hinjutting. We made you. Fed you. Clothed you. Turned you into this. This success." Success. The word twisted on her tongue. Laced with the old bile. "You didn't let Sophie eat." Quiet. Factual. A scalpel's edge. That halted her. Breath-catching guilt, or calculation. She recovered swift. "Don't blow this up. No chairs left, that's all." 28 heads. M. Plus, the neighbor popping in. Practical. Not personal. 28. Including strays. But not blood. Her lips thinned to a seam. It was personal. I held her gaze. Unflinching. Treating her like baggage, that's the line. "Mom?" Crossed it. She snapped, then. Volume spiking like a fever break. "Oh. Spare the drama. We're not villains. You are. Ripping families over a misunderstanding. Threatening your own folks." She brandished the notice like courtroom exhibit. "Then deliberate." Theatrical tore it, clean down the middle. Shreds fluttered to the boards. Her smile triumphant. Eyes gleaming with victory. "There. Done. Poof. Now. If you want back in our good graces, cut the tantrum. Pony up for Mia's camp, that STEM thing. $1,200. M. Easy for you." The audacity landed like a gut punch. Stealing breath. "Forgive me for their slight," as if Sophie's tears were negotiable. My ledger, a bargaining chip. In that instant, clarity sliced through. They never saw me.